Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I talk about, well, first we talk about Elago, one of my favorite companies that makes accessories for your accessories. Then a little bit about some of the new features in iOS that are particular to the smart tech crowd, as well as TCL's new VR glasses. Talk about having a gigantic screen in front of your face, whether you're sitting up or laying down or sitting in front of a cup of coffee, no matter what, you can have a huge screen in front of your face. And I personally am pumped about that. Plus, we have a bigger conversation about services that offer hardware and then later set up a subscription you have to pay for, and the implications of something like the Halo Band on personal health, particularly mental health and self-confidence, plus loads more. This is a jam-packed show of Smart Tech Today. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Casper. When it comes to a better night's sleep, Casper's new cooling collection has you covered. Focus on tomorrow. Let Casper handle the rest. Explore Casper products, mattresses, sheets, pillows, and more at casper.com/STT and use code STT for $100 off select mattresses. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, the show where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. We are kicking things off a little bit later today because there was a Windows 11 event this morning. So for those of you who are here with us, thank you for tuning in to the show. And for those of you who are not, thank you for subscribing to the show. We do appreciate it. Anyway, I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am your other host, Matthew Cassinelli. How's it going, Mikah?
Well, it's going just great, Matthew. It's going just great. It's been a long day, and there have been lots of things happening, but it's going well. We have some things smart to talk things about, and that starts with Apple and a suggested case to add to your Siri Remote. Folks, I have told you before about how much I appreciate Elago for being the brand, and I want to be clear, not El Gato, Elago, for being the brand that makes products for products that don't cost a bunch of money. Like the products that they make things for already are low cost, is what I mean. And so it's things that you might not expect to have accessories made for, and Elago goes ahead and does that. So I've shown off my Elago remote for the older Siri Remote, and now they've got a remote sleeve for the new Siri Remote.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. If only because I almost want the sleeve on this new remote more than the old one, which is my hot take, because I feel like I'm going to break this thing. Like, it feels so big and chunky that it feels like the thing that I would hit with my hand off of the couch and knock onto the floor, versus the other one I had the Studio Neat dock, which is just a little slit of wood, and it would fit on the top of our coffee table. But I kind of don't want the big piece of aluminum poking out of my coffee table. And so I tend not to leave it there. I might try to get that studio dock also just to test it out, but I feel like having a little silicone case that protects this remote with the sharper edges seems worth it. And these are pretty cheap too.
Yes.
So pretty solid solution.
Inexpensive and very nice, nicely done. I respect Elago for kind of doing the things that others are not doing and doing them well.
It has a magnet in it too. So like you could technically, they're showing it mounted to the corner of a TV, which psychologically sounds wrong to me because I grew up in the era where if you put a magnet in front of your TV, it would destroy the entire thing.
I'll never forget the time I was in kindergarten when I made this mistake one time, and never made that mistake again, because someone said, "Don't put a magnet next to onto the television. And so obviously, if you just say don't do it and you don't explain why, curious little Mikah is going to do it. And I had just been, we lived in California back then, and I had just been to Missouri where all of my family lived. And there was this thing my great grandpa had that I just adored. And it was this, it kind of collapsed like it collapsed kind of like an old school car's antenna. So it was like a collapsible into itself. It was metal, and on the end was a magnet. And the idea was like if you dropped a screw or you dropped something very small, you could extend it and run it around on the carpet and pick up the screw or whatever it is that you dropped. Because of that, it had a very powerful magnet. And so, yes, the first thing I did was take that very powerful magnet and put it across the TV. And then suddenly the TV was green and blue and weird in this one area. And I didn't know about the degauss feature. Luckily, there was one. And so I didn't end up getting into an extended amount of trouble. But in the moment, I was definitely in trouble for doing that. And that's when they learned, always explain why you say not to do a thing, because then the little dork will understand and won't do that thing. Yeah, so I'm with you. It's like a magnet next to the TV. I'm still weird about magnets next to storage devices too. It's just like, is it going to erase? All right, let's talk about. So in the next version of watchOS, the app that was once the artist formerly known as Breathe has been updated to be called Mindfulness, and the Mindfulness app now contains Breathe and Reflect. So 9to5Mac has done a rundown of their thoughts on the new Mindfulness app. I'm curious if you've tried it, Matthew, because I have not installed the beta onto my Apple Watch. I've installed everything else, but I was afraid to install the first beta on my Apple Watch and therefore refrained from doing so.
I don't know what you mean. How dare you assume that I have beta?
Oh, come on. Someone was thinking about installing the beta of macOS before the show started. So how dare I? How dare you, sir?
The second beta, I'm already on the first beta. That didn't cause any issues, but that's fine. It's interesting. I haven't done it too much. I am supposed to reflect on a relationship that I have and something that I can learn from it. So,
oh man, this is tough stuff. I don't know if I want to.
I've learned a lot from you and as Dr. Mikah, and I feel like I practice some of the stuff I've learned from you on the show, like every day, like sleeping on my left side or something like that is a good example. And so I totally appreciate that because sometimes it does help. It does have, oh wait, here, I got to start it again. It's got like a cool animation now too that it used to just have sort of the pulsing breathing in and out, but now it's got like this. Here, let's see if I can show it a little bit on at least the camera. It's kind of a cool.
Oh yeah,
reflect. It's like
it's groovy, baby.
Groovy or oozing or something. Oozing is kind of sounds gross. But,
groovy oozing. We love groovy ooze. I'm starting a new slime company and calling it Groovy Ooze, and you can buy my Groovy Ooze slime.
But yeah, I think it's pretty nice. I mean, I like the idea, especially just. It's maybe like for a minute during the day isn't exactly how I do it, but anytime I get distance on something and have perspective, sometimes you're just like, wow, how did I not realize this before or something like that? So I appreciate the little nudges towards those kind of things from a smartwatch. Seems pretty nice though.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Qingping just dropped a new HomeKit air quality sensor. That's right. If you are into HomeKit enabled devices and you are looking for a new kind of air sensor, I really like the look of this. It feels very Stormtrooper. It's very minimal, and I like the typeface they've chosen. Qingping makes some different HomeKit stuff, and in fact, iMore has rated them as the best HomeKit temperature sensor. But now this device will track your air quality as well as temperature. It looks like it's a kind of a multi-purpose device, and it's got a rechargeable battery, so it's movable. You can move it around and have it very easily, I should say, move it around and have it determine the PM 2.5, PM 10, which those are both particulate measurements at different particle size, CO2, which of course is carbon dioxide in your space, temperature, and humidity. So this is a great way to add not only room sensor measurements, but also automating those things with the help of this Qingping device. What was I going to say? Oh, it's unclear if it has Thread built in, or if it's
probably not,
or if it's exclusively Bluetooth over HomeKit.
Yeah, I do think it's Bluetooth. I'm not sure even is Bluetooth over HomeKit specifically a thing, but yeah, or just Bluetooth. But
I mean, it uses Bluetooth as the connection with HomeKit. So that's what
I thought you meant like, yeah. The part that I was just going to note that not every app has is just the historical data for up to 30 days, which is nice. Sorry, how do you say it? Is it Qingping?
Yeah, Qingping.
It's spelled with a Q if you are looking for that. But that's just kind of the pronunciation. And then the other part that seemed nice was that you can just plug it in with a USB-C cable. They don't include one since that seems to be the trend now, is nobody includes cables anymore. Since they supposedly are.
Get your cables elsewhere.
But just like not having to plug it in. I mean, it stays plugged in as opposed to like every 30 days charging it or something like that too. So that's pretty nice. But I think the historical data, isn't that only, is it true that only Eve does that too? Yeah. So
as far as I know, Eve is the only, with certain caveats, Eve is the one that does it across its line of devices. And in fact, there are companies who will use Eve's history management system because they've completely cracked it. Basically, that is not 100% the case if you start to involve things like Homebridge in your home, because there are third-party home automation, or air sensing tools that have historical data, and you can make them part of your, HomeKit Home via Homebridge. So yeah, as far as HomeKit goes, it's cool to see another air quality sensor that has that historical data built in.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Tell me about what Aqara is up to. Oh, this is a review, and it is looking at Aqara, particularly, as I've said, with thought to the M2 hub, because it truly kind of completely imagines Aqara's line of products, in my opinion, because suddenly things connect much better, they're much faster, and also if you set the Aqara hub up near devices that have IR detectors, then you can also use the M2 hub as an IR blaster for all sorts of things. So you could turn on tower fans, AC, your television, your home entertainment system. All of that can be set up within the app, and so you can use this one device as the blaster that turns that all on, which is really cool.
And even, I missed this line when I first read it, but you can use their IR transmitter through shortcuts and trigger an action in their app. So actually,
because suddenly you can go.
That's why I picked the story, but
it's movie time, and movie time now doesn't just turn down the lights and set the temperature, but it also turns on everything for you at the same time. And of course, people will go, well, but I can do that through Apple TV if Apple TV has HDMI CEC. But if you've got an older system that doesn't have HDMI CEC, then you need to turn those all on independently. So you could set up a shortcut that turns those all on independently. And maybe it also turns off the tower fan that you have running. By the way, tower fans, but that's an aside. That's not quite a Dr. Mikah. That's more of a picky Mikah.
Yeah, opinionated
topic. There you go. Opinionated.
Wait, tell me why.
All right.
What's the story?
This is specifically I'm stealing this almost wholesale from the Wirecutter in terms of the verbiage, the text, but in reading why the Wirecutter says what they say, and then my experience with tower fans, I'm going, yes, this is true. So, because sometimes there will be assertions made and I'll go, I'm not really feeling that. I don't really get that. But if someone says something and it makes sense, then I'm like, you know what? We're going with that. That actually makes sense. And the problem with tower fans, and of course with caveats, but the problem with tower fans is that they're incredibly difficult to clean, and they are incredibly good at collecting dust due to the mechanism by which they bring air into a space. They collect a lot of dust. And if you have ever, like I have, tried to take apart the, at one point, Wirecutter recommended tower fan to clean it, then you know how difficult it is to take apart and clean. It was so bad that I had to, what did I do? Oh, I went to a store to look at one that was put together so that I could remember what all needed to go where and get it back together after taking it apart and cleaning it. And I thought, you know what? I'm never going to take this apart and clean it ever again. That's terrible. But so that's first. Like, fans need to be cleaned. You need to be cleaning your fans, or else you're spreading dust and dirt and grime and dead skin cells all over. But then secondly is, and now I'm free. The whole point of a fan is to circulate air in a space, to bring in fresh air and take out older, stale air. And by circulating air and moving air, you are going to help cool the space, or whatever it is you're trying to do with the space, dry the space, what have you. And it's only it's a temporary benefit to have a fan right next to you blowing on you. That will cool you down, but only in the moment. If you want like a longer lasting thing, then it's about cooling the space. And in that case, air circulators, not fans, are what you want to get. The most popular air circulator that a lot of people probably know about is Vornado. They make little air circulators and big air circulators, but those things are actually, by the nature of the way that they're set up and by the speed at which the blade turns and all that kind of stuff, they are pushing air as opposed to just kind of lightly breezing it at you. Yeah, there's a Vornado air circulator. And so that is your best bet if you're looking to properly cool a space, or if you have like a stale room or something like that, it's better to go with that than a tower fan. Your tower fan is eventually going to get so covered and coated in dust that it won't run as well as it once did. And then there's risk of fire, and it's just all sorts of bad news. So yeah, tower fans are no good. I first learned about tower fans being no good from the Wirecutter, but then that was backed up by me going, okay, that makes sense. And then, as I said, in my own experience with my tower fan, it was a nightmare. Dreadful. So yeah, don't use those anymore. I'm saying I don't use those anymore. If you do, no judgment, just know there's better out there.
Yeah, that's why we're here, the smarter solution. So
smarter home.
Interesting.
That's what this show is about.
Look like Vornado has IR, so unfortunately it won't work.
Yeah, you'd have to, but the good thing is a lot of them are stateless, or excuse me, are stated switches. So that means that you can just turn it to 2, and then you have it connected to a wireless plug of some sort, and then you can have it turn on. So I think fan manufacturers are smart about that, where many of them make stated switches versus stateless switches. For folks who are going, what is he talking about? A stateless switch is a switch that doesn't have a permanent state in which it is placed. So a light switch is a stated switch because it's either off or on. And when it's on, it is sending that signal, not technically, but just bear with me here. It is sending that signal saying it's on, it's on, it's on. Really, it's just bridging the gap for the circuit. But with stateless switches, like the A button on this controller, it doesn't currently have a state. Technically, the state is unpressed and you press it, but they're buttons that can basically mean anything. When power goes out and comes back, that's a stateless switch. But a stated switch is going to have one meaning, regardless of whether power is on or off. So that's what we're talking about there. So when you were trying to make a dumb product smart, you want to have a stated switch product, because otherwise, or a product that's smart about returning to its last state. Yeah, exactly. Memory about its last state whenever it gets power again. Otherwise, you are going to end up having to get one of those little button pressers or something else to make it work with your automations.
Yep.
All right. Tell me about what does and doesn't work with Siri and iOS 15 when you're offline.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting. And I have my own addition, which I wonder if you could guess what category of Siri.
Does it have something to do with
feature?
shortcuts?
I don't know, maybe. But basically,
Siri shortcuts?
Mac, yes. They like just did the quick test to see if you, basically the best way to test this is just turn your phone on airplane mode and see what still works with Siri, but you can open apps, do all of the system features, timers and alarms, and changing music. But then, of course, if you are doing anything that requires updated info, weather, HomeKit, reminders, calendar, those won't work. A lot of specific actions and apps with like a Siri. I'm curious if this would change out of the betas, but just like, I actually didn't test this one myself, but like if you just need to add a task to things, for example, I would hope that would work offline because it doesn't really need to process too much. Yeah, even messages, FaceTime and phone calls, like making those doesn't work, but I wish you could, I guess you could still dictate, it just doesn't send. But then even like playing new songs and stuff like that doesn't work. So I'm curious if some of these will change over time, but that's at least how it's going so far. And yes, I did test it. You can trigger shortcuts offline. In the same sort of way, anything that requires an internet request wouldn't work, but I just did one that prompts a certain menu that I have for like opening different YouTube playlists that I have, and at least like getting into the menu and running the shortcut process itself does work offline, which is pretty cool. So
sweet.
I'll have to create a whole suite of offline only shortcuts or something like that. But
oh yeah, that'd be nice.
I usually run into that problem of just because I can doesn't mean I should. But if somebody has a specific thing where they might need to use that, I could definitely set that up. So if you have ideas, leave them in the Club TWiT Discord or email them to us at, is it feedback@twit at what is it?
Nope,
You always
it's
say
just
it at
stt@twit.tv.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. Let's move to the future. TCL, who apparently just wants to take a big old step up in the world. So I always think of TCL as the television maker, and it's the TV that I use, a TCL Roku TV. It's kind of the TV for the rest of us, where it's a TV for the rest of us, but it's like the TV for the rest of us with an extra dash of awesome, because TCL, while it is not as expensive as your Samsung or LG television, actually makes really good quality displays. And so you aren't going, super down the line with, I'm not going to name those brands because that'd be mean. But it's sort of mid-range. And so I always think of them as television makers, but apparently they are also working on some smart glasses. Yes, they are joining the race of smart glasses. And these ones are not for augmented reality experiences, but instead are for completely you, yourself, and you experience for watching movies on your glasses. So it's hard to understand on its own, but the thing that you should understand is that they are going to emulate, or they're attempting to emulate, a 140-inch display in 16:9 aspect ratio. So it will be like you were watching a movie in 140-inch display. The video that's there will show you what this experience is like. So it's vaguely AR, but it is not. It's maybe not what folks are thinking. But I will be honest with you. This is what I imagine AR being for me. Yeah. I want it to be a way to bring up a display anywhere in my view and be able to use that. Now, I have to say, if the flight attendant came by and I was wearing glasses, these glasses specifically, I would tell him, hold on, let me stop being a nerd for a second and take them off and then say, okay, what is it that you need? Because there's no way I'm going to continue doing things without them. Now, see, the video is currently showing a woman lying down, looking up in the air and watching a movie on this huge screen. Let me tell you who has not at least considered mounting a television to their ceiling at least once in their life. I know some people who have huge crane things next to their bed so that they can put their iPad in it and like have it drifting over their face. Who has not cast the first stone is what I say. That would be really cool. And what I love about this idea and what I want, this is what I want AR to be. This is just like a one screen thing. So it's not quite, in my mind, you could create multiple screens. I think it was Microsoft who a long time ago did a video showing the future. And in it, that was the idea that I definitely always keep in my mind for AR. But you could be out and about and sitting, you go get some coffee and you sit down, you put these on and you've got this huge work screen that you can work on right in front of you or play, you don't have to always be working. So I would love to check this out. I would love to see what this is like.
As usual with some of these teaser type products, you have to live in Australia. So
it's always, why is it always Australia?
I don't know. I was going to make some dumb joke, but I'm just not even going to try. I feel like it's probably just be stereotypical, but I think that part about it being it's not quite VR, but it's just like a projected display in these smart glasses, I think is an interesting product. It also says that as long as you have a USB-C port, you can watch something from it. So I'm curious what that really means in practice, if that's like mostly designed for Android phones that have USB-C ports, or if that is just like any video that you make that you plug into your iPad or something, or MacBook Pro could work on it too. That'd be fascinating. But I just like this idea, and just to tie it together, we're doing this short segment on just VR stuff in general, and so I thought this was a unique take on that.
Yeah, I want these. I want these so bad.
So the next story is about how to work in virtual reality and why you'd want to. And I thought that was perfect that you just said that a second ago, because I've actually set up the virtual desktop for my Mac. Me too,
and I haven't used it very much.
Yeah, I think that's part of it is I have so many screens in front of me right now, but I don't see a huge benefit from sitting at the same desk and working in VR yet, but I think that's also because of the sort of applications. So $20 for virtual desktop if you want to try that out, which is pretty cool. And we have examples. The article has examples about just like Firefox's reality browser too, which is cool. And just the fact that you can like more recently plug in your keyboard and mouse and use those virtually in VR, but the real ones on your desk too. So you can actually sit there and do your work from VR with like Facebook's Oculus Quest 2, which is pretty cool wirelessly. Do they recommend the keyboard that I have? Because I hate this keyboard. Oh no, there's a new one. I guess I forgot this is the illuminated keyboard K830 is the only one compatible with Oculus Quest 2. So that's
really, why is there only one? What's the reason for that?
I think it's designed to do all of the inputs and plug directly into the headset, as opposed to like you can use your computer going forward. So it's got an integrated touchpad in it also.
Oh, and it will detect the touchpad. I mean, it will detect the whole keyboard and let you bring it in.
I think that's for navigating. It's basically an integrated keyboard trackpad so that you just use that one thing. And
so you're not hunting around for a mouse as well.
Yeah, it's like, where the heck is the mouse? Because you can't see.
All right, I might have to get this.
Yeah. So I think it's probably still early days, but I think this is just a pretty interesting thing, interesting setup.
It's also...
Okay.
As an aside, holy moly, why is it so much more expensive on Amazon? It's $120 on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
But it's only $60 on Logitech. So the thing is, it is, what am I trying to say? Oh, it can also be used as like a television keyboard. So you could set it up with your TV whenever you have those experiences where you need to access it. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. You don't have a Quest, do you?
I'm so offended. Did you ask me if I had a Quest?
No, I blanked out. Yeah, I just don't know.
We've worn them on this show together.
That's fair. I forgot. We haven't done it in a long time. That's why I wanted to bring it up again. It's just
and I showed you my egg.
What was the egg? Out of context, that doesn't mean a whole lot. So.
I showed you my egg.
The virtual reality, the Oculus case is what he's referring to. Wow. That's why
I showed Matthew Cassinelli my egg.
That's not. You shouldn't do that on air. I don't even know.
After hours. I mean, after the show. God, that has all sorts of context. Okay. So wait, did we get to the point about? So we talked a lot about the keyboard, but what was their experience with actually working in VR? What apps did they choose to use? What was good about the experience? What was difficult about the experience?
I think this is one of those articles where they put that in the headline, but didn't really address it a whole lot. I think they were just talking about how you can do some of that collaboration stuff. Another example was vSpatial, where you can kind of have that more in-person type experience through virtual reality, whereas you can't, I mean, it's not exactly the same in Zoom at all either, but I thought it's mostly about how to do it. Whether or not you want to is like probably pretty limited, but I do think at least just working through a browser and things like that, which is where a lot of work gets done, does seem at least feasible. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, but you get all your work done on an iPad, so.
Actually, well, I'll just use this opportunity as a completely self-promotional teaser that I'm doing a stream with Chris Lawley tomorrow, who does work from the iPad entirely. But one of my hot takes is that I've actually never worked only from the iPad. So, well, even though I probably know how to better than most people, I definitely have been using a Mac, and I'm kind of enjoying it. Also using it again more now. So we'll see.
Wow.
Tune in if you want to hear that.
I'm scared about that. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with more of this here show called Smart Tech Today. Of course, we are joined this week, as we always are, by Matthew Cassinelli, my co-host and pal. And yeah, we are doing the show a little bit later today because there was a Windows 11 announcement this morning. But let's take a breather, take a yawn, and rest easy knowing that this episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Casper. Look, when it comes to a better night's sleep, Casper is there for you. Love your tomorrow with Casper. The new Casper cooling collection has everything you need to help you sleep cool all night long. Casper's mattresses with new snow technology, hyperlight sheets, lightweight duvets, and breathable mattress protector are all designed to keep you cool and comfortable so you can't help but love your tomorrow. Tomorrow is a new day. Make the most of it with Casper's new cooling collection. Casper's Wave Hybrid Snow Mattress keeps you cool for 12 plus hours, pulling heat away from your body for sustained temperature regulation, a cool to the touch feeling, and a much improved tomorrow. Better bedding makes for a better tomorrow, which is why Casper's Hyperlight sheets are designed with an innovative grid weave that lets air flow through for maximum breathability. The lightweight duvet provides optimal temperature control without sacrificing plush comfort. Casper's breathable mattress protector improves the coolness of the bed even further by allowing air to flow between your body and the mattress. All of these are designed to work together to prevent overheating all night, because cooler sleep means better sleep, and better sleep, well, that means better tomorrows. Of course, I love my Casper mattress. Casper on Casper on Casper. I've got Casper sheets, Casper pillows, and it all helps me rest easy, rest comfortably. When it comes to a better night's sleep, Casper's new cooling collection has you covered. Focus on tomorrow. Let Casper handle the rest. Explore Casper products, mattresses, sheets, pillows, and more at casper.com/STT and use code STT for $100 off select mattresses. That's code STT for $100 off select mattresses. Exclusions apply. See casper.com for more details. Thanks so much to Casper for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. And now we're back. All right, we've got some stories to talk about here. So settle in as we kind of discuss these. The first one, actually just had the pleasure of talking to Brianna Wu on Tech News Weekly about Peloton. She is a Peloton owner, and as she put it, she loves her Peloton, is part of the cult of Peloton, and unfortunately, she said, due to the membership rules, she wasn't able to show us her robe and mask for the Peloton cult. But in more serious wow. In more serious ways, she was talking about Peloton and what it has done in handling this situation, and why a really good conversation about why some Peloton community members seem to be supporting the company in its decisions. And then also talking about kind of why Peloton made the choices that it made based on what happened. So the first thing that we need to talk about is where this begins. And it begins with Peloton's new treadmill. This treadmill is, so Peloton, I think, is most well known for its very expensive bikes. But since then, it has come out with a very expensive, like more than $4,000 treadmill. And unfortunately, there was a child who was killed as a result of this treadmill. And there were pets and other people who were injured by this treadmill. And so because of that, the Consumer Product Safety Commission reached out to Peloton and said, look, this is not good. You may need to do a recall of the product. And then when Peloton did not act immediately, put out a report, the Consumer Product Safety Commission put out a report about the treadmill, and Peloton responded, sort of attacking the CSPC or CPSC for putting out that report because they were saying that they didn't give Peloton time to make a decision. Since then, Peloton has said, we're issuing a recall. It's a voluntary recall, so you can send it back. If you don't want to send it back, we can also have someone come out and fix the machine to make it more safe. And then we can also, there's a way to basically set up a PIN so that you type in the PIN before the machine is activated. But here's the problem. The PIN, as it stands, is only a feature that you can get if you are a subscriber to Peloton's $40 a month subscription service. So on the face of it, safety costs you an extra $40 a month. If you want to enable a feature to keep the thing from working unless you type in the PIN, you have to subscribe to the service. That was compounded by a woman who went to run on her $4,000 some treadmill, and Peloton had, without her permission, this is her claim, without her permission, had updated her Peloton treadmill so that it had the subscription service, or it had the PIN set up rather. But because she was not a subscriber to the $40 a month service, she suddenly couldn't access her Peloton. So this more than $4,000 treadmill was something she couldn't use anymore. So there was all of this coming together at once where a kid had died, pets and humans had been injured, and Peloton was seemingly holding back on wanting to do a recall. And then now on top of that, you're saying that the way to get the most safety for your device is by paying us $40 a month. Peloton eventually issued 3 months free to this woman. Said, oh, well, sorry about that. We'll give you 3 months of the subscription for free, as if that was supposed to fix things. But then after those 3 months, she would have to start paying for it. So people are, as you might expect, kind of upset that on top of spending all this money on a treadmill that they thought they could just use as a treadmill, they can't anymore because they have to use the pin. So this kind of leads to a larger conversation that we could talk about here. And then I'm curious about your thoughts directly about this too, but also just about, because I brought it up to Bree, the different devices that we've talked about on this show where they once were just a one-time fee and then later on added a subscription, and what that meant for different consumers.
I guess just since you did already talk about this more, I'm curious, just to clarify, does the way the Recode article is written, it sounds like there's no way to use the product at all anymore unless you're paying for that subscription service. But is it possible that if you don't want these security changes, you can just use it?
Yeah, that's my understanding of that, that comes from having that conversation, is that you can use it without installing the security update. So it's not as safe, but it's usable.
So it's not entirely in the realm of, I can't even, it's like those guys that the subscription service thing that completely fell apart and they started charging people more. Who was that again? Was that?
Are you talking about Wink?
Yeah, Wink.
Yep.
There's so many W ones. But so it's not exactly the same as that territory. And especially because it's such a physical, large product that's different than like a smart home thing no longer getting like end of lifed for to use the industry term of without being able to use it anymore. So that does make sense. It is a shame that they can't just give this away for free. I think that's one of the major issues sometimes, is when it's just like, if this is a major safety feature that could save people's lives, why do you have to charge for it? But I'm curious if that is tied into just being connected at all, versus if the Peloton treadmill just works on its own without this. I mean, I assume that's how it is, as it has the you don't need the subscription service either just to run on it. I think this is one of those bad situations, but also sort of what you get into when you buy a smart connected treadmill and things like that from a very specific company. And it sort of implies if you have $4,000 that you can't afford a treadmill, that you can maybe afford a monthly membership. But also the point sort of is you would hope that you could just buy the whole product up front and not have to pay for it in the long run too. I think this is sort of one of those unfortunate situations, and I'm glad it's born out of being more careful. I do love the part here where it's our voluntary recall in collaboration with CSPC. That's just like when somebody like quote unquote retires from a company when they clearly got fired or something like that. It's you're not in a good spot there, but it's sort of one of the realities of a high-end subscription or service like that from a company that thrives off of their business model is the subscription itself too. So you sort of have to expect it at one point, unless you're going to keep sort of the current version of the product. Do you have a specific angle, or I'm curious to know also what Brianna was saying?
I mean, basically, so I did want to mention very good point about, when you looked at how some of the people who are part of the Peloton community were responding to this, they were pretty up in arms at people kind of, lambasting, going after the company there. Why, you're attacking these people. Why are you doing that? And from the outside looking in, I'm going, someone died, several people were hurt, and now you're charging more money to make this thing safe. I don't see how you can defend that at all. But Brew was talking about how when day in, day out, you are using this product and you are a subscriber, you start to form personal connections with the trainers that are leading these classes. And you start to see Peloton as these trainers. And, these trainers have helped you with your health and with, maybe self-confidence, maybe all sorts of things. And because of that, there are going to be people who are, when they think of Peloton, they're not thinking of lawyers and engineers. They're thinking of these folks that are, helping them. And so, of course, there's going to be some kind of some bad feels if they see this company being attacked. But ultimately, I said, I can ask for you, I'm like, okay, if you could sort of give your understanding of how is this not immediately something that the company would try to fix and fix the right way? What do you think was the reason for the delay and the arguing and all that kind of stuff that happened? I don't understand why people or why the company waited and why all these things happened. And again, a really interesting thing. And of course, with the stipulation that this is just speculation, it is not her knowledge of what was going on in the company, but she basically said, look, sometimes lawyers will tell you to do things and will suggest that things need to happen. And it's all about protecting the company and, staying safe from lawsuits. And those things don't always translate into good things that people on the outside are going to react well to. And so she thinks that is what caused kind of this delay and not quite answering the questions that were being asked. So
yeah, their brand is extremely important to them because in many ways why people buy the product. And I mean, I just know that we live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so it's just extremely popular with Peloton. VCs and tech people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so ruining your brand early on could just be the death knell for a company. I mean, because it's so expensive. It's why would you buy
it's so expensive.
That's so much more than the other version that you can get, and it's as much about the cult of Peloton as much as the actual physical product, which is that's a very negative connotation, but just community and feeling belonging to a group of people that consider themselves active is sort of the point of it too, as much as the tool is just you are a Peloton person and you live that lifestyle. So I think it's just being so directly associated with this thing is both a nightmare for the people who experienced it and for the company. But I think it even just them responding with a subscription service being required does sort of fit into their brand almost despite it being slightly negative. It's just well, this is all a thing you're going to be paying for. So yeah, that is interesting. It's definitely not a great story for them, but I'm curious. I also think that's why sometimes it's worth just examining these topics and talking about them, because I do think the Vox article itself, which sometimes can just be the only headlines you read, sort of, it's you never fully own your connected devices. And sometimes they do kind of spin the story in a way I love articles where the second to last paragraph references 5 different things in the industry that have happened over time and ties them all together into this one story, and then makes their conclusion off of that about how Apple doesn't let you repair your devices and John Deere has their software control over the machines, which is, I think, one of the problem. But it's always interesting that they tied it into social media companies limiting speech. And I was like, what does that have to do with Peloton charging a subscription service? But I think it's still I don't know. It's always interesting I love hearing Brianna's angle on this.
Yeah,
too, so
it was a really good conversation, honestly, about that. So it's overall, my stand on all of this with Sonos and with Wink and with Peloton. And it's hard to reconcile that we own hardware for many of our devices, but not the software that runs on them, and what level the software provides versus what the hardware provides, and whether I should have more control over a device. And we just talked about the Echo Look and, having the webcam to be able to use how I want to. And Samsung started to do a recycle program with its older Galaxy phones, but then kind of walked that back and didn't end up doing as much as they said they were going to. That all is troublesome. I'm glad there are companies like iFixit who are, pushing for more repairability and more recyclability or upcyclability. I think that that's important. And I certainly, if buying a more expensive treadmill runs me the risk of not being able to use the treadmill as I want to, I'm going to get a less expensive treadmill and be happy that it doesn't connect to the internet at all.
That's why I do wish, this situation is slightly different than some because of the safety issues and it being such a giant physical product that it is like you can get caught under the treads. And so this might be the one situation where having a fully like dumb mode, or I wish almost all smart home products did have a dumb mode where they could work without even once they get disconnected, which maybe Matter type stuff will enable in the future if it just needs to connect to the home or to the hub itself. I'm just sort of speculating on that. That's probably something to re-examine more over time. But maybe for some products like this, not just having you can just go free without any security, sometimes that is a little bit of concern. I like how you mentioned I guess was it the Echo Show were you saying, or the Look?
The Look, yep.
Yeah. Just this next story that we have is about, it's always, this is an interesting, in the same way how the story is written sometimes can sort of give you a different perspective. But the person's like, I've been reviewing fitness gadgets for 8 years. The Amazon's Halo made me confront my body in a way I wasn't ready for. I thought this was an interesting story and just sort of a first person account of some of those problems that these issues, this kind of tech can present. And basically the premise of the story is that the person was like, I've always generally not I could tell that maybe my body wasn't where I wanted it to be when I did this. But then Amazon, they're like, I knew I wouldn't love it, but when Amazon told me how I was doing, it was really harsh and actually just discouraging and didn't actually help. And so they went on to say that they're basically 10 points above what would be healthy, and how
it does. I didn't know it got that detailed.
Yeah, which also they're saying that it's been reported that Amazon, or the Halo thing specifically, over reports that as compared to a lot of other products where they went to a doctor and it said this person is probably okay, but Amazon said that they were worse than they were. And even another angle with it is it doesn't show the external scan of your body, and you do develop fat in your organs and things like that. So that can also not account for those kind of things. And I like the person's angle too, just about being a tech reviewer. They've always sort of had the balance of I got my credit on the Apple Watch so I can have the pizza thing, which I'll admit I totally do that too. Of it's just oh yeah, I obviously went for enough walks today. That's fine. I use it more specifically in LifeSum to calculate calories out versus in, and that I actually think is a really helpful data, because I noticed my girlfriend just started doing LifeSum too, but she hasn't been wearing her watch. And I was sort of you get a little more credit than what it's giving you because you do actually get out and get exercise. But I thought this was, the way this article was written was, I was assuming it would say the Halo sort of doesn't let you get away with that, where you're I just ordered a pizza, but I went on a walk, so it balances out. As it's no, your Apple Watch can't tell that your pants don't fit as well and things like that, which I think is an issue with a lot of fitness trackers and things like that. Is technically, if you're just getting 10,000 steps, you're healthy, but also if you're just walking all day long and not doing anything else or not eating well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a healthy person overall. But then I think the interesting angle was just that it basically discouraged them. It didn't, even though like the lighter approach of an Apple Watch, even though it maybe doesn't always like result in the ultimate best decision, just your Amazon Halo being like ear fat or something like that is like, wow,
Right.
great. Like this is just brutal, and it's just like too personal sort of. And like you can analyze regional hotspots on your body, which I feel like that is like,
what the heck?
it's like, oh, you should lose some over here and over here.
Yeah, I don't know why. Man, now I'm just who's this for, other than someone who's sort of in the market for feeling bad about themselves.
Exactly.
It seems,
maybe
it
in a
seems
medical
just really
situation.
severe.
Yeah, like if you actually needed to lose weight for your like for your actual health and safety, that like it could be a problem. I could see using this as just, sometimes people do need the like brutal reality, but I think as a consumer device, that's a little too intense. And this even specifically is like not a medical device. Like they are very clear that they can't claim that. So it's sort of an odd, I think this is what people expect overall, or just like the whole, this is too much. But I thought it was interesting that even for this person specifically, it had the opposite effect, where it didn't make them want to like get more motivated to lose weight. It's just like, wow, I don't enjoy this. So I think, it's like maybe sometimes we do just need that nudge to do a little bit better, and not like a full detailed analysis of everything that's wrong with you. And I think that's totally true with smart homes. It's like it's smart tech in general and smart homes, of just like you can get really overboard and in detail about every single thing, but sometimes just the 80-20 rule of getting 80% of the way with 20%. I'm not going to explain that well, but you need to look that up too. That's always a good rule of thumb too with some of the stuff, is get as much value as you can from the smallest chunk, and then maybe not go overboard where Amazon is pointing out exactly the percentage of fat that you need to lose. So do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, none outside of what we talked about. I know. Other than just choose self-confidence and happiness and joy over things that hurt you. That's all. Let's move on to the next topic here, which is a really interesting one about ALEXA. And by the way, VentureBeat's typeface for its headline is gorgeous. I wonder what that one is. That is so pretty. Anyway, it's a scientist who works for Amazon, specifically on ALEXA, talking about developing trustworthy AI systems and talking about toxicity and privacy. So here's this paragraph here. I won't read the whole thing, but a little bit of it. Fostering trust hasn't always been the ALEXA team's strong suit. In 2019, Amazon launched ALEXA Answers, a service that allows any Amazon customer to submit responses to unanswered questions. Amazon gave assurances that submissions would be policed through a combination of automatic and manual review, but VentureBeat's analysis revealed that untrue, misleading, and offensive questions and answers were served to millions of the users. I just said the name because I was reading too fast. In April 2019, Bloomberg revealed that Amazon employs contract workers to annotate thousands of hours of audio from sometimes accidentally activated ALEXA devices, prompting the company to roll out user-facing tools that quickly delete cloud-stored data. And researchers have claimed that Amazon runs afoul of its own developer rules regarding location privacy on ALEXA devices. So we had talked before about that Bloomberg piece from 2019 was big, and it shaped the whole ecosystem. Apple, Amazon, and Google all shortly after released tools to help you to make the choice of whether you wanted to send that information off to be sort of paid attention to by real human people. So yes, it is a tough job to try and figure out how to improve upon and maintain a level of trust for these devices, so that not only for the case of privacy, but also in my case, for example, for the case of I trust that this thing is going to do what I need it to do, or that it's going to do what I expect. And that is something that is ongoing for me, where I just don't have the patience to try and be okay with it. So yeah, I think this is interesting.
That's exactly, I guess, my point of, one of his, did you already say the guy's name? Rohit Prasad, head scientist at Amazon's, oh no, I said it too, Echo division. I'll just say it. Sorry. But he's basically saying that the industry is in an inflection point, because I thought this was, I'm just going to paraphrase what he was saying, that like your artificial intelligence has to learn about you in order to keep the level of trust, because in theory, we're all going up and to the right in the same direction of like, you use it more and you trust it more, versus just like becoming more and more comfortable with it. But like that low level trust isn't necessarily there sometimes. And I think it's sort of like, we all at this point know what to expect from smart devices, but I think there's very clear things where we expect them to be bad. Like you do. And I think that comes into that trust story of just like, as much as I trust it to turn on the lights, I trust it to get the voice interaction wrong 50% of the time. Or like, I've been having a lot more trouble with Siri, of just like, especially the worst is when it gives you a long phrase to explain that the thing that you just did doesn't work, and did then go check it in the app. And I'm like, please just shut up. Like, stop responding. If it doesn't work, just don't work, or something like that.
Right.
So, and I think also too, it does make sense that like, as we get more comfortable with it, in theory, these things should be getting smarter, not just like maintaining that same level of, we just do the job that we're here for, but it's still not actually intelligent. Like, I think a good example, and I always love this example too, because I have a very even more particular angle of it, is they're talking about like things for dietary preferences, is just that your assistant should know that to only suggest vegetarian restaurants. And my angle with this is always, some people are vegetarian and some people aren't vegetarian. And so there is a blend of having vegetarian and non-vegetarian food that is almost never accounted for. And I think particularly should be resolved through something like machine learning, where they can figure out that these meals could be substituted for meat or not, and those kinds of things. As
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Their example is just vegetarian. And it's like, yeah, but there's nuance and interaction between those two things, not just either or. That's still very much what to me feels like an if statement that isn't actually artificial intelligence and is just how programs work. So the fact that they use that like fairly simple example is like, come on, guys, there's still, the world is much messier than vegetarian or not. That's a perfect example of where they need to get further. This article does talk about how like they've seen more adoption in the enterprise and in hospitality and elder care centers, and that they like use machine learning to route the right request to the right app, which I think is, particularly just being someone who uses Siri shortcuts, that's a mechanism that I can do it, but that's not built on machine learning. And that kind of stuff of automatically figuring out which shortcut to take, for lack of a better word, is something that I want to see from smart assistants in the future. It's like the fact that I have to pre-program 800 shortcuts is ultimately a failure of a computer being an artificial assistant, as opposed to me doing it all myself too. So I'm like a perfect example of that. While I'm absolutely thrilled to have the ability to do that instead of not, it still is like the average person isn't going to do that. And so getting even deeper with artificial intelligence, I think, is important. And they do highlight too how your assistant interacts with you and things like that can reinforce other stereotypes, or things like accessibility can create accessibility issues. So Amazon's done stuff like typing to ALEXA, which is a good addition there. It's like bring it to everybody, not just people who are going to use their voice. Like, for example, Mikah, who's never going to. That doesn't make sense. That that's why you probably don't use Amazon stuff as much, because it's almost purely through voice, whereas a lot of the others have a blend. So I never really thought about it that way. But so I mean, this is just sort of a industry piece sometimes about just like how to develop trust with those systems. But I think it's true that we're on a better path than I think things seemed before, but there's still a long way to go, especially catching up to, like, the technology might be getting better, but people's perception of it and the common knowledge of what a smart assistant is always going to be like probably 18 months or something behind what's actually new. So getting more trust out there into people and not breaking people's trust through consistent issues or things like that, I think is important.
Agreed. I think that, I would be more likely to want to use these things if I saw sort of a complete introduction of, so it's like, it's the hunches that Amazon does and the smart routines that Google does and the Siri suggestions that Apple does that are what would lead me down that path of wanting to interface with these devices more in that way via voice. And what's funny about that is that most of those things are for just completely not having to interface at all, of just letting those things happen. And so it's,
like actual automation.
I'm realizing more that it's not that I am, because I used to joke it's because I'm a control freak and I want, to put things exactly how I want them. It's not about that. It's that, it's about that trust. I don't trust the thing to do it how I want to do it or as quick as I can do it on my own or what have you. It's like being part of a group project.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you know what? I'll just do it. I'll worry about it. I'll do it.
I love that. Wait, a group project with each of the individual assistants. And it's just my God. Like Siri just still not even working. Or
Siri's just going blah, 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 blah. The Google Assistant has said, I can't do that for you.
He's the know-it-all who is just like, saying, just telling you random information.
Results or something. Yeah. And then Amazon is like, can I order something from Amazon for you? The one sitting in the corner browsing their phone, looking at stuff to buy. All right. Well, next, folks, we have the questions segment of the show. And now it is time for some questions. Matthew, why don't you tell us what questions folks have for us today?
Yeah, this was a good follow-up from Chuck. Just kind of talking about the shortcuts failing from HomePods. And he was like, hopefully this can be helpful to people because I happened to be in the other room without my phone and noticed that the shortcuts started working perfectly from my HomePod again. And then I went back into my bedroom where my phone was and tried the same shortcuts and they kept failing. I moved my phone to the other room, tried the same shortcuts where they were previously failing and they started working again. So he basically realized that when the phone listens for, hey, blank Siri, that in close proximity, it will cause the shortcuts to fail from the HomePod. And if you actually turn off listen for Siri on the phone, the shortcuts won't fail. So it sort of sounds like in the, he says, so I suspect this is an issue of priority between devices, which in turn causes the failures on the HomePod. If you haven't already tried this, I would give this a shot, at least for a temporary workaround. Who knows when or if Apple ever fix this? Well, to just address that last point, filing this as feedback this is exactly why you should file feedback. It's because it's just an edge case where like they might not have realized this or tested this themselves, and giving them the actual solution where you know that this is where it works and this is where it doesn't work means that an engineer can usually just be like, oh, okay, go right in and fix it, as opposed to like my shortcuts from HomePod don't work. They're never going to figure that out because it's just like they'd have to test every other edge case. So I would say check if you haven't filed this as feedback, please do. And I could also do it as well. But then it totally makes sense that just that disambiguation between devices, while I both love it, is so frustrating sometimes. Just the fact that it always has to listen and then be like, oh no, I wasn't the right person, and HomePod should answer it. And so it sounds like just in that handoff process, maybe the HomePod then by like, it gets the thing, but I've seen a problem before where shortcuts like on the app ran before they were called, they ran too fast almost. And so like, it's almost like the shortcut tries to run, but in the handoff, it stops it and then just can't continue from there almost. So it does seem like this is a pretty solid way. It's like, I mean, I don't remember the last time I even used, man, he can't reference the feature at all because it's the trigger phrase, but using Siri on my phone hands-free, I almost never actually do that. So maybe it would be worth turning off. But it kind of just bugs me that I still somehow wish this was smarter while also not lighting up the screens. And just obviously if the shortcuts just work, that's the biggest issue, but still just like having my phone and my iPad light up every time I'm trying to use the HomePod is kind of annoying. So maybe I'll have to file feedback on that and request specifically what I want instead, because that's also help. Giving them a solution is also helpful. But this is good to know. Yeah, if you're having problems with your shortcuts on the HomePod, turn off, listen for Siri phrase.
That is good to know. Because again, like you said, I never would have guessed that. And it's whenever you're paying attention to all those little details, it's good to know. All right. Papa Sam. Hey, Papa Sam writes in, Mr. Matthew and Mr. Mikah, can you tell me what is the best Wi-Fi extension that I can get for my home? I'll be looking forward to receiving your reply. Thank you for your help. Well, Papa Sam, we've got to start with a bit of terminology here, because when you say Wi-Fi extension, you could be meaning many things. If you mean a range extender for your Wi-Fi network, that's one thing. If you are actually just meaning a Wi-Fi router, that's another thing. If you're wondering the best mesh networking for your home, that's another thing. So I feel like we need some more clarification from you, Papa Sam. But in the interest of giving you some sort of answer, I'll tell you about what I do in my home, and I will make some broad suggestions about what you may avoid and what you may look for. In my home, I use the most recent the Eero 6 Pro, which is a Wi-Fi 6 router. So it has the most recent version of Wi-Fi. And then I've got a bunch of stuff connected over Ethernet through my switch. And then I have Eero
an
beacons.
Ethernet switch, you mean, not Nintendo Switch.
Not Nintendo Switch. And then I have beacons throughout my house that are Wi-Fi range extenders for my home. So it blankets the whole home in Wi-Fi.
Eero beacons?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
You just said Wi-Fi. That's why because those are just specifically part of the mesh network and designed to expand the network, versus a Wi-Fi extender as a standalone product is usually like a
repeater.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're handing it off and cutting it in half usually.
Yes. So this is the next thing that we'll talk about, Papa Sam. And this is the part where I'm getting more broad. When you are looking for extenders for your home, I almost always recommend against getting anything that just plugs into the wall and is not connected to your main router via Ethernet. And the reason why is because most of these are Wi-Fi repeaters, and depending on how well they can connect to your main router, they're only sending. So you have to think of it like this. It's, say you've got your router on your bottom floor of your home and you want to get more signal on your third floor. So you've installed an extender of some sort that you just plug into the wall. That extender has to get signal from the main Wi-Fi router in order to take that signal and then spread it even farther. So think of it like you get a barrel full of water, and you've got to toss that barrel full of water at somebody else's barrel that they're holding, 30 feet away. And so as you toss it and they go to catch the water that you've thrown, I think 30 feet is probably too far, but forgive me on that one. And they catch it, they're not getting as much water into their barrel. And so then they take that and they throw the water to the next person, and less and less and less and less. If you have an Ethernet connection, then it's like running a pipe between the barrel, the first barrel to the second barrel. So then all of the water, all of the goodness from that first barrel gets to the second one. All of your Wi-Fi or all of your internet connection from your router to that second location, it gets everything. And then from there, it can spread it out. It can throw its water at all of the devices that are just tiny little barrels. And so you're just getting a better connection that way. I also am hesitant to suggest any power line extenders. There's just too much interference and weirdness that goes on with those. And I'm hesitant to talk about, there's another category, it's called mocha. I imagine people probably just say mocha, but it is a very unique thing. And so Papa Sam, I would want to hear back from you first before we go down the mocha route, as that is kind of a more in-depth opportunity, an in-depth fix. So I'm curious, Matthew, if you have any other thoughts on this before we get more from Papa Sam about what he means when he says Wi-Fi extension exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like to me it's like, how do I improve my current network, not replace it with the mesh network? And I think what I'm curious about, this is just sort of my question for you, since does this make a difference if you just have really, really good Wi-Fi? Like if you have gigabit and this does cut it in half and you only get 500 megabytes down on the extension, like does this product story change as internet speeds go up? Whereas before, if you just had like 30 megabits per second and getting 15 and then even less on your actual device at that point. I'm just curious.
Oh, I see what you mean. You've got a gigantic like if you have
plenty
barrel
to spare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this one from TP Link has up to 750 megabytes. And then even like some of it is like a feature where they only use one band so that you can like, in order to create the connection to extend the network, and then your phone itself can get more or something like that. So
yeah, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
See, I think of things from the perspective of like, I want to get the best that I possibly can. If I'm going to spend money on a thing, I want to make sure that I'm getting as much from it as possible. But I like your idea of, for some people, if all they're doing on their phone is, because I'm always thinking of the edge cases. I'm going, okay, but what about the one time that I want to use my phone and stream a game from my, from the cloud to my phone? Because I bought that thing that cuts it in half, then we're not great. But you have a good point that if it starts out at gigabit, that you've got a 50-gallon jug and you pour it into the person's jug that's
I just need a cup,
10 feet away. Yeah, then that's plenty for just browsing Twitter and stuff. That's a good point. So
it's almost like you're talking to someone who has Ethernet cables wired to his office that provide a lower speed than what he should be able to get. And so I pretty much have a Wi-Fi extension. Like I could have just put it up here. I mean, that's what I was, even with an Eero and the mesh network, it still, at least for my home, didn't create a strong enough network. So that was kind of at least my only solution. And I'm trying to get it fixed, I'll say. So that's just me being dumb. But I think that's why it's sort of, I'm curious if maybe Wi-Fi extenders are decent now and not as much of what is kind of, I don't want to call it a scam, but I think it's like, oh, you can just kind of get more Wi-Fi is like not necessarily true with Wi-Fi extender. It can provide that, but it's not going to be as great of an experience as a mesh network. But if you do have enough speeds, it might work. So maybe this is something we should test too, because it's sort of changed over time. It's like what was true 5 years ago isn't necessarily true now that we have mesh networking everywhere. And I didn't even realize I have like the original Eero, which feels old now, and I'm curious, even like my new, or like the new iPads and stuff have Wi-Fi, or I don't remember if it has Wi-Fi 6, but they have much faster bands, and just that kind of stuff can actually make a big difference. Just faster speeds overall of the network. It's not the network, but the hardware itself too. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, Papa Sam, yeah, that's right. It might be worth testing out if you're not moving into a mesh network thing. But as always, if you do get questions answered on the show and you have more to follow up, please send that follow up straight back to us, and we'll answer it again. And then I have a last question that is not an actual question, but I just put it in here because I was talking with my dad, who
I love this.
He did tell me that he listens to the show, which, hello, Dad. Thanks for listening.
Hi, Matthew's dad.
Dave is his name.
Hi, Dave.
But he's considering getting the Ikea smart shades because we have, like, in the master bedroom in my childhood home, has basically got giant windows, but they're kind of always, it's like in the corner of your bedroom. So you'd never really want to go like open those every single morning and close them. And so he was like really looking at the Ikea ones that are cheaper now. And I wanted to recommend that maybe if that isn't, I mean, like, I wouldn't recommend someone in my own family avoiding away from those IKEA things because I'm super jealous and I totally want them and I want to try it and see what it's like. But also the SwitchBot, which is a super common, or gotten a lot more popular in the last few years. That SwitchBot brand has a curtain. What's it called? I guess the is it a SwitchBot curtain? Okay, there we go. That's why I was like, is there any other name of that? But it basically goes around the curtain rod and is just a little smart device with little wheels on the inside that can push the curtains open and close for you, like left to right, instead of receding up and down into a roller or something like that. And so, Dad, I think maybe you should try this out instead of, maybe Mom would appreciate not buying a whole set of expensive smart shades and just pushing open and close the ones that we have. Although it would be pretty sweet.
Then one of us would finally at least have some experience with smart shades, given that we've both talked about them so much on the show.
I just have too many windows. I think I have at least 3 main windows, and I would want to do one small window. And so that could end up being like $700 for just my office to like be slightly more convenient than walking in and going like this. But in an environment where you would actually like never have, they've lived there for what, I don't know, 20 years, not that long, but and I bet they've opened them 20 times total. So this could actually create like that daily experience of just being able to, like, we did our whole backyard and stuff like that. So being able to just enjoy that does have a lot of value. And especially if you can get it through a product like this that's cheaper, that's like a major win in my book. So, Dad, I recommend the SwitchBot curtain.
Yes, Mr. Dave Cassinelli. Now you've got your suggestion. All righty, folks. Up next, our picks of the week. And now it's time for our picks of the week. Matthew Cassinelli, tell me about your pick of the week, just in time for Prime Day to have ended.
For listeners, maybe not so much, but I was seduced and went through the whole decision-making process of, I want to get a Kindle, but I wasn't sure which one. And I got a lot of recommendations for a Kindle Oasis, although it does make sense that the kind of person who would make a recommendation and likes a Kindle is enthusiastic about Kindles, and so ended up wanting the nicer one. But I finally resisted my usual tech temptation of just buying the nicest, most expensive, not that I do that, but just as a joke, but still the temptation to just get the nicer one and even get like 32 gigabytes of storage instead of 8, which is for books, probably completely unnecessary. I've already loaded like $300 on it, and I'm sure it'll be fine for ages and ages. So I did manage to snag the Kindle Paperwhite for $80, which is a pretty solid deal. It's like already back up to 129. So that seems pretty expensive for what I wanted. At least this was more in my price range. But just off the bat, I'm very interested because just this single purpose device is a great idea. And I already like that it just makes me feel like I want to read more and like sit there. And I mean, I definitely partially is because it's summertime and I want to go to the beach, and it's probably pretty stupid to bring $1,000 iPad Pro to the beach just to read a book. It's like starts to get into the territory where I'm making decisions about it based off of how much the product cost, instead of like this thing I got for pretty cheap now. And so I can just kind of throw it in my bag and honestly replace it if I did break it, and then wouldn't break the bank. Whereas taking my work computer to the beach just seems like the stupidest idea I could possibly have. And it's just like, I'm going to go on Twitter or like do something else instead of just reading. So I feel like just the idea of single purpose devices. I mean, sometimes when you buy a just general smart home product, you do want to get one thing that does it all, but getting the one thing that does the thing the best is also a very good strategy. So I'm like super satisfied, and it's a funny thing to just get like a product that's been extremely popular for over 10 years or more and stuff like that. But it's also like, hey, this is kind of nice. So I'm pumped. If you have book recommendations, please send them to me. I asked on Twitter and got a bunch that I still need to go through. And it gives me an excuse to create a whole nother Airtable and then shortcuts for logging books and grabbing the books out and all of that. So of course,
but you'll be doing that instead of actually reading the books.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's not already true.
Oh man.
Well, I'll save so much time that I can read all those books afterwards. No. But if you need me this Sunday, I'll be at the beach reading my book. So or my Kindle.
Oh, lovely.
What's your pick?
All right. My pick of the week. I kind of am, I don't know myself anymore.
You're a gamer?
I've always said that I'm not a gamer and I don't game, and gaming is not a thing that I do. And I played on the iPad Pro Divinity Original Sin 2 and Definitive Edition. And after playing that game, I realized how much I enjoy RPGs. And I had a craving at that point for more RPGs. And so I went on to the App Store and looked for more there. And there were a couple, but none that were like Divinity Original Sin 2. And so then I looked online for iPad RPGs, and again, didn't find anything that was quite like that. So I realized I had to look outside of the App Store. And the only way to do that is to either get games for your computer, but the Mac doesn't have a whole lot of support for that, or to do some sort of streaming system, which basically lets you play games that you couldn't otherwise play. And so an example of that is Amazon Luna and NVIDIA GeForce Now, Stadia, and I think that covers the big ones.
I think Game Pass is now.
Oh yeah, and yeah, Xbox,
sort of in that realm.
Their whole thing, xCloud, and so I started looking at Luna, and I started playing a game, a really fun game. I covered it on iOS Today last week, and it's been a lot of fun. But I've almost beat it, which is, again, wow. I have played 2 games in the past month, which is just wild to me. And so I started to look in other places, and on my Mac, I am able to play some Steam games, including the new Baldur's Gate 3, but that is currently in early access, so it's not done yet. So I couldn't get very far in it if I wanted to. So I downloaded NVIDIA GeForce Now, or you don't really download it, you install it because it's just a Safari window. And they recommended something called a Backbone as a controller for the game. Because with Luna, I've got the Luna controller, and I use this with when I play the Luna game on the iPad. And what I love, we've talked about it on this show, I think, and I talked about it on iOS Today. This is not a Bluetooth controller that connects to your iPad and then uses the Bluetooth connection to send movements. No, what this does is it connects to your Wi-Fi network and it sends the movements, the controls to the cloud. So that way the responsiveness is really great, but then also it lets you pick up on any device that you want to and just use that same controller. But I sort of impulse purchased this product. It's called the Backbone One, and it is a controller that you use with your iPhone. Unfortunately, I don't have my iPhone near me, so I can't show what it looks like whenever it's all connected, but I will show you here. It's got a lightning connector at the bottom, and you fasten your iPhone into it, and this is extendable. And so then you just, here, I'll turn it this way. So then you just sort of extend it to however it needs to be for the iPhone, and it fits the iPhone 12 Pro Max that I have. The camera module on the back doesn't quite fit. In terms of it's just very slightly lifted, but it's not to the point that it's trouble or anything like that. So it works just fine. And then suddenly you have a controller on the left and right side of your iPhone. You've got all the controls. It's got the standard left button and right button, left trigger and right trigger. Your joysticks are on the front. They're also clicky, just like a standard controller. ABXY, your D-pad. Then it has a special button that takes you to the menu for the Backbone. And then what they love to talk about, which I didn't much care about, is this button here, which lets you do both screen shots and screen capture. So if you are a gamer and you're playing on your phone and you want to record something, you can use that little button to quickly start recording and then publish it to your Twitch or wherever people, I don't know, I guess you stream to Twitch, so publish to their YouTube. I don't know. So that button doesn't much matter to me, but this controller feels really great. And then it's really nice that it's just kind of like, it's an extension of the phone as opposed to a whole separate thing. I have not, and yeah, they show on the site, they compare it to a Nintendo Switch and kind of talk about how, hey, this is so much better than a Switch for these reasons and why people might like it. The one thing is, I think I would like it better with an iPhone 12, not an iPhone 12 Pro Max, because it does get a little unwieldy trying to reach across the whole expanse of this. But there's the games that I'm playing almost never have screen controls. It's all controller controls. So it's not that much of an issue. But yeah, it's available for $99 from Backbone. You've got to order it from Backbone. And this is literally all that comes. Oh, I forgot to mention on the bottom, it's got pass-through charging. So you can plug in a lightning cable here, and then it will charge your device.
I didn't realize
it is
pass-through.
Nice. It is completely powered by the iPhone. And then on the other side, there's a headphone jack, which for people who have iPhones who know, there is no headphone jack on the iPhone. So people might like that you can play games with a headphone jack and be able to listen. And I think it even lets you connect a headphone with a microphone so that you could, do all of your
voice chat.
Voice chat. Thank you. I was going to say crap talking, but voice chat is much kinder. And of course, you can just use your AirPods or your Bluetooth headphones. But I know people love their headphone jacks. So yeah, controls feel quite nice. I don't like. No, I do sound like a gamer, but I don't like super gummy ABXY buttons, and so. I was really impressed with these ones because it has a nice click to it that bounces back. So you really do kind of feel yourself pressing those controls, which I think is important whenever you are have something playing in front of you. So that's the Backbone. It is absolutely an indulgence at $99, but unless Apple up and changes to USB-C for the iPhone next, I should be good to go for a while. I have with this.
From at least the general rumors that I've seen, I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think we should be okay for a bit at least. That is a good point. But I have one too, by the way. I'm sitting here playing with it.
Oh, nice. What game are you playing?
I was just messing around with they have like an app that's kind of like an app store, which is nice. That anytime you've opened an app with it that works with a controller, it'll kind of save it there so that later you can
put a little
just open
shortcut for you.
Yeah, and go back, which is nice.
What
and
games
it's also,
do you play with it?
I haven't played much because I wanted to. I think I mentioned it on here that I got it when my Xbox broke, and I tried to play Apex Legends, and it was absolutely dreadful. Like the problem that I have with it is the control sticks in between going straight up and like actually going left or right. There's a dead zone in it that is like a little bit too much. It should be straight in the center, and instead it's like you go a little bit and then it activates. And so just in games like that, they already have basically dead zone calculations where like how hard you press forward makes a difference and things like that. So at least if you're trying to play like Call of Duty or something, like Call of Duty Mobile might work, but I think some more remote play like games like that won't necessarily be the best experience. But I do think just in terms of playing any sort of mobile games, I think it's a great, like this does seem like by far the best mobile controller. I have another one that like has like a clip on it and you put your phone on top and then you're kind of holding what's more like a traditional Xbox controller. But I do think that usually those, I mean, even they put the joysticks in weird places. Like they make choices that, I mean, Nintendo Switch does the same kind of thing, but it's very much like, I consider myself a gamer, and like the Xbox controller is kind of like the golden standard for controllers. And this is sort of a mobile version of that but I do think if a version 2 where they kind of made those stick sensitivity a little bit better would go further for. It is sort of hard to lose the hardcore gamer market by like not being good enough for that.
Have other people complained about this? The reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering if it is a faulty controller.
Yeah, I was wondering if I left mine somewhere where the control, the other issue that I have with it.
I love how you blame yourself as if
it's fair, because I'm pretty sure I put it in a bag or something like that at some point, so it could be the case. I think the problem with this product is where do you put it? Like when you're not using it, it's not attached to your phone. You can't stick it in your bag because it has controllers that if you stuck it in there and the controller was left, it was stuck to the left as in your bag all day long. That's like notoriously for game controllers what will just ruin them and they'll get like broken that way. So I don't know how to take this with me to use it when I would want to. It's like perfect for at home when I just have it next to me on my desk or whatever. But for like a student in their bag or something, I don't understand where you would keep this without possibly damaging it. And like that, if you damage the main controls, what's the point of the thing anyways? I should maybe send it back, but like pretty sure if you hold it with your thumb on the thing, there's just a little bit of jiggle before you start actually tilting. And so that dead zone is what's like, I mean, I'm at the point where like getting the Series X made me, I am better at Apex Legends than I was with the lower quality version. I noticed that the other day. I was like, wait, why have I been doing better? And then I was like, wait, it's probably because I switched. So, yeah, I just remember there's no way I could use this for remote play for something like a first person shooter. And Anthony in the chat is saying, love my backbone, not so great for first person shooters though, but still.
Got it. Luckily I hate those games, so I should be okay.
Exactly. I mean, RPG stuff is super fun.
Although when I'm sneaking around and trying not to get caught,
yeah,
or trying to keep myself from when I'm solving a puzzle and trying not to jump off a ledge,
exactly,
could be an issue.
But nice backbone.
Well, maybe I'll send it back.
I've sent them some feedback too. Like, I do think if we add each other as friends, it tells me every single time you're using it, which is a little too much. And it's sort of like, I was like, this disincentivizes me from adding my friends, but I think they're a cool company and I want to see them succeed too. Like, I want to play Apex Legends on my phone, and that's like why I got this kind of thing. So I hope to see it get better over time too. Sorry, I jumped on your pick there.
No, that's totally fine. Honestly, I think it's cool and it's okay for me for now, but it's good to know so that I don't accidentally recommend it for somebody who needs something more what am I trying to say? Who needs something that's more sensitive. Okay. That brings us to the end of this episode of Smart Tech Today, folks. If you have questions, feedback about your backbones, I don't mean your spines, because that's when you should talk to a spine doctor, you can send those to stt@twit.tv. Of course, you can check out the show. We publish it every Thursday. So you can go to twit.tv/STT and grab the show by subscribing to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Just click subscribe to audio or subscribe to video, depending on what you're looking for, and then choose your service. Or you can tune in live on Thursdays, twit.tv/live, when we record at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, usually, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, usually. And that's a great way. Also, if you want to get all of our shows ad-free, you should check out this thing we do called Club Twit. For $7 a month, you get every Twit show with no ads and access to an exclusive Twit Plus bonus feed with extra content you won't find elsewhere. And perhaps most popularly, access to the members only Discord server where you can hang out with us and chat with us about different things. If you're a Reverb mic, then you send nice compliments while I'm recording Tech News Weekly earlier today. That was a very kind message that you sent. So yeah, come hang out with us there. Come join the party. You just go to twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month, and we would love for you to join us. It would help us out tremendously, and it's just a great place to be. So we appreciate it. Also, we just launched a new thing that's sort of an old thing, but made new. It's called Tech Break, twit.tv/TB. If you're subscribed to the TwitBits feed, then you're already there. But if you are new to the game, you should check out Tech Break. Essentially, this is the way for us to publish stuff as we want to. So it's kind of a quick and easy way for us hosts to share content with you that we care about in the moment. So earlier today, Leo recorded something that just explained what Windows 11 is, what was announced. Yesterday, when John McAfee was found dead, there was a quick recording about that. When we get new products and stuff in that we are unboxing, we might do little unboxing videos. There's all sorts of stuff that's going to be on that feed. So you can check that out, twit.tv/TB. And that's available to everybody, by the way. That's not a Club Twit special thingy. So you can check that out for free. All right, Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where do they go to do that?
You can go to matthewcassinelli.com/newsletter, where I have switched my newsletter over to Review, which is a service is now owned by Twitter, but basically just kind of an easier way for me to send out a little bit longer emails and more details. So I have everything about shortcuts out of WWDC, and I have more follow-up coming out tomorrow. Every Friday is when I send it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, and you can also head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I am most active online. All righty, folks, that brings us to the end. So we say good afternoon to our smart assistants. Good afternoon.
Good morrow.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. If you would like to laugh while learning about how to take control and take advantage of all of the features that your iOS devices provide, then you should check out iOS Today. The show Rosemary Orchard, my co-host, and I, Mikah Sargent, host every week on the TWiT network. It's all things Apple all the time.